Good morning, Marlow. How are you?
Good. How are you, Gina?
Good. I want to welcome everyone that's watching. My name is Gina Marcello, and this is part of a series that I am hosting for my digital media production students at Rutgers University. And I'm very happy to have with me here today Marlow Donohue. Marlow is the CBS Sports Network producer for Tiki and Tierney.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Gina.
Marlo,
Glad to be
thank you
here.
so much for taking time out and joining me today. So today, in what we're going to talk about is, I really want students to get a good understanding of what it's like to be a producer. And you are a television producer for CBS Sports Network, but more than that, you also have experience in radio.
Yes.
So, what I would like for you to do, if you don't mind, is can you just tell us a little bit about how you got started in the industry?
Sure. I was actually a student at Rutgers, New Brunswick. And
Wow, how about that? There's a Rutgers thread.
I started there and I was definitely enjoying myself, having fun. And I knew I wanted to go into broadcasting. I knew that from when I was 16 years old. But I was kind of bored with their program. There really wasn't a lot there technically.
Right. So
So,
many years ago, having been a student in that program, that you
oh,
did a lot of work on theory.
yeah,
And there was a little tiny bit maybe in production, but if you had your heart set on production, there wasn't a
yes.
lot at that time offered. So I can totally understand
No.
that.
The classes themselves, I mean, the theory class, I love the professors and all of that, but as far as like, getting hands-on experience, things like that, there really wasn't a lot. And I think you had to be like a senior before you could even like walk into the TV studio or the radio studio. So I was kind of bored and I decided that I guess, going to leave. I didn't really know where I was going to go. I looked into Connecticut School of Broadcasting and I decided to go there because there, I'd get more hands-on
It's really
experience.
all, isn't it? I think it's all hands-on
It's
experience.
all hands-on.
Right.
Yeah.
So in the classroom, you actually are in a variety of different studios. And I think Joe Beningo from FAN also went there, right?
Yes, he did. He did. And that's actually who I heard on the radio saying it.
Oh,
So
funny.
I decided to check it out and they were great. They gave me the experience that kind of gave me confidence into possibly, doing something in the industry. Unfortunately, my own fears kind of kept me in that hole. At the time, I wanted to be like a music journalist, maybe a DJ, something like that. And I was scared. So many people tell you like, oh, broadcasting is so hard and how are you
Yeah.
going to break in and things like that. So I was always so scared. And so I always went for the safe jobs. I wrote for Steppin' Out magazine, and then I wrote for like these other like local magazines or newspapers, different stories on like shows that I would see, or it even went as far as like I would try like some new restaurants and like write about that. So I moved out to San Diego because I thought, well, let me see what's out there. And I got a job writing out there actually. And I
Oh,
kept
okay.
just taking all of these writing jobs, and it wasn't giving me the experience I needed in radio or TV production. So what I did was when I came back home, and it also kind of bothered me too that I didn't have my BA.
Okay.
So that's, even
How
though
about that? So here
CSC,
you leave, right? You're like, I'm going to go do this. And then you're like, I don't know if I can do this, right? Which is really what every single person that I've talked to has said. I
yeah,
think there is a little bit of that hesitancy. Like, am I really going to be able to do this? This is a really tough industry.
yeah.
Right.
And you
So,
hear so many like horror stories, people love to tell you these things. And unfortunately, I was too young and impressionable to be, stand on my own and just say, I'm not going to listen to that. But when I got back home, Connecticut School of Broadcasting actually offered me to work with them as their campus
wow.
coordinator.
Okay.
And so here I am I'm getting jobs and internships for everyone else. And meanwhile, I'm still sitting here in my fear. And then finally I said, you know what? I'm 37. I don't know why I'm doing this now, but I finally got the courage up to go back to school. I went to Thomas Edison. I was doing classes online. I was working full time, and then I decided that I was going to get an internship.
So wait, I just have to stop you because I
Sure.
love this part of your story. You are 37, 38 years old, which is
Yes.
really almost like a second career type. And you
Yes.
say, I need to get an internship.
Yes.
Yes, I
Yeah.
mean, that just took so much courage, and one of the reasons really why I wanted to interview you because I admire the fact that you made that decision and you were able to move forward from there and how far you've come in that amount of time.
Thank
Excuse me.
you.
You're welcome. So at 37, 38, you're like, "I need to really get my together and figure
Yes.
this out."
I didn't
Okay.
want to go. I didn't want to, get older, become like 80 years old and say, well, what if? What if I could have went into broadcasting?
Yeah.
And it was really haunting me. And so I got the courage up. I said, if I could go back to school, I can go and do this internship as well. So I interviewed at some places. I was lucky enough, very lucky, to get into WFAN. I had decided I wanted sports broadcasting because it was always a hobby. I would watch sports, but I was like, I think that's entertainment. It was flooded. Um, and entertainment, I would read every day. I was kind of like tired of it. So
You were
sports
over it.
broadcasting was like exciting, a little more challenging to
Yeah.
me. So I decided I was lucky enough to get an internship at WFAN. Interned for 3 months, really hauled my tuchus and tried to show them, what I was capable of. And I was lucky enough again where Eric Spitz, the program director, he took me on to launch CBS Sports Radio Network. And he took me on as a board op because of my technical experience.
Isn't that
So
amazing?
that worked out for me. And I didn't have to sit in the bullpen as, just taking phone calls and, cutting tape. So, or cutting sound, I should say, I'm showing my age. Um, and then from there, I always wanted television broadcasting, even though I love radio. Um, and I happened to be running the boards for the morning show that was actually filling in for a show that was on television. So they were on television for this week. And I met one of the producers from the TV side of CBS Sports. And one thing I've never had a fear of doing was networking, thank goodness. And I kept in touch with him, and I finally was hired as an associate producer over at the TV side.
And
So
what show was that?
at the time, that was actually Boomer and Carton.
Mhm.
So I was
On the
taken on
TV
as
side of Boomer and Carton.
I'm
Excuse
sorry,
me. On the TV side of Boomer and Carton.
on the TV side.
As an
Yep.
associate producer, okay.
Yes.
So for those that are watching or even, the students that are watching, a lot of people don't understand the connection between a radio show that broadcasts on television. Do you wanna talk a little bit about how that works between the 2 producers and where you are in terms of where you are physically and how that
Mhm.
works, that relationship?
Sure.
Sure.
Thank goodness for technology and communication. um, the guys or the gals are in the radio studio, and I have an RTS. Basically, it's what our communication panel is called, and I can speak to them in the studios. Um, but how it works really is the most communication is between myself and the radio producer. And so we start the day collaborating, and then basically we make that radio show, because otherwise you just have people talking into mics, two heads, and that's it. So basically, we take that radio show and we put the bells and whistles on, pretty much, of full
Right.
screens and B-roll and things like that.
Yeah, so it's important, like, that you do have that good relationship with the radio station, and I think the fact that you had some of the radio experience and then you were on the TV side really did help because you understood the rhythm of the show for radio and then had the vision of what that it could look like for television,
I
right?
think it's so important. I think radio really breaks down the structure of a show. And it helped me immensely with television. Even regular TV shows that I might have filled in on that weren't radio shows,
Mhm.
it's helped me build a show.
Right. So, we were talking about how you got started in broadcast. You did your internship at WFAN. Eric Spitz asked you to come over to the TV side for Boomer and Carton at the time when it went to CBS Sports Network, and you were working as an associate producer.
Yes.
Okay. And then what happened?
Then what happened was I was in that associate producer role, and at the time, Andy was the producer for the show, for the Doug Gottlieb show in the afternoons. And he was the one that actually brought me over to the TV side. So he asked me if I wanted to learn how to be an associate director as well. And I said, of course, that, why wouldn't I? And that actually brought me into the control room because as the associate producer, you're sitting in an edit room, really.
Okay.
So this brought me into the control room. And that's where I was like, okay, Marlo, this is like do or die. You need to show them what you're about. So, of course, I had to learn the role of the AD, which is, counting us in and out of break, things like that. I needed to show the producer who, thank goodness didn't suffer from, huge ego where nobody else could do anything in the control room. He was actually very kind and very open to me trying new things with him. And I showed him how I put together segments, what B-roll would look good with what full screen would look good with what. And he was impressed with that to the point where I was pretty much producing the show and ADing the show. And that's how I got the producer job. I mean, that's how I literally jumped over like all these other people
That's
and got
incredible.
the
No, that's
producer
really
job.
it really it speaks to I think to your work ethic, which I'm gonna actually skip around in my questions and I want to ask you, what do you think are the most important qualities for a producer? For a TV producer or even a radio producer, what do you need to have? So if a student is thinking about going into the industry, what do they really need to know in terms of skills, in terms of work ethic?
Um, you definitely have to have attention to detail. Um, it Everyone is relying on you to make sure you're dotting the I's, crossing the T's, that everything looks good, everything sounds good, that your hosts have the correct information. Some hosts don't do any prep work on their own. They rely completely on the producer. So that's something that's very important. Also, having easy access to any kind of breaking news, things of that nature. Your
What does that
job
look
is
like?
24 hours.
It's 20, right? So do you feel like you're constantly working?
I not because I'm so used to it now. You get
Right.
into your own, rhythm, but you pretty much are, and I feel bad. I'll be at dinner with a girlfriend and, she hears my CBS Sports app go off and I feel terrible because we're in the middle of a conversation, but unfortunately I have to know that Cam Newton has COVID.
Right.
So, those are
Right.
those are,
The
they
hazards
kind of
of the
get into your
job.
your social life.
Yeah. So I actually want to go back to the question about how you got started because you told me a story that I'd like for you to share that you started producing your own show and you were paying for the equipment. Can you talk a little bit about that? Students always ask, well, if I can't, how do I get experience if I can't get an internship and the internships are competitive? And I really think that you created your own opportunity. So if you could speak to that, I'd really appreciate it.
Sure. When I had come home from San Diego, I was very frustrated. I wasn't enrolled in school, so I couldn't get credit for an internship. I didn't even know where I would internship. I didn't know how to begin, nothing. working at Connecticut School of Broadcasting, I had made friends with other people that were interested in TV production. I knew I couldn't pay these poor people, but for some reason they wanted to be a part of it because it was something that would put experience on our resume. So um, we would borrow cameras off hours from the school. Our director of the school was so good to us in that sense, but we would rent lighting. We would rent lav mics and different kind of audio equipment. We would have to scout the locations ourselves. We would have to talk to the owners of different businesses. What our show was about was hiding, going and discovering these little hidden gems that were in New Jersey, like a cool restaurant or some little cafe or a little boutique or something like that. And I thought it would be helpful. And the only way I could get my foot in the door with these people, because we weren't even News 12, for goodness sake. We were just
Nothing
total
wrong with you,
grassroots. And we want to come shoot your boutique. People are like, what? So
especially then, right? That was a while ago. Yeah, no, now
yeah,
it's probably more
yeah.
common. Like then they're like, "What? A whole TV crew? Like what?"
Why do you want to come in here? What are you doing? So I used to tell them, I'm like, listen, we'll give you the video and you can use it. Websites were starting to, become very
Popular.
popular. And so I said, you can use it on your website. You can use it as a commercial. You can, whatever you want to use it for. But it will help us get the experience. So we were able to actually put some stuff on YouTube and use it as a tool for our resumes. And thank goodness I did that, because when they were hiring people for the associate producer position over on the TV side, I still had an interview. It wasn't like, oh, you work for radio? Great, come on over. I still, I had an interview, and I was able to put that on my resume. And honestly, it was like the only thing that helped me, because otherwise I had no TV experience whatsoever.
That is why I wanted you to tell the story. So to me, like, I think if there is a will, there is a way. You
Yes.
just need to figure out what it is. And you are such an example of that. You wanted this and you really even though you didn't realize you were doing it at a time, you kept trying to build your skills up. And then you reached a point when you're like, okay, now I feel more confident. And I don't know if it's because we're women or just because the idea that the TV industry and the broadcast industry is so competitive, but there is that fear. And, not a lot of younger people are confident, have that level of confidence, like, I can definitely do this. So I
Right.
just give you so much credit that you sort of planned this out in a way that unfolded so naturally for you. I'm sure it didn't feel that way,
No,
but with a lot of hard work, then now here you are at Tiki and Tierney producing a daily sports talk television broadcast. So it's just incredible.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
And I have Justin here that's a student that says that's awesome.
Oh, thank
And
you,
Rose
Justin.
saying this is a great story.
Thanks, Rose. Thank you.
All right. So I want to ask, what is it like? What is a typical day of a TV sports producer? So you get up in the morning and then what happens?
We get up in the morning, and instead of saying, good morning to my fiance, I say good morning to Twitter. And I see what's going on for the day. I just basically, I usually have a lot of prep from the night before, because we're mostly watching a lot of games and things like that. So I have stuff already set up, and then I call Mike Samter, who is our radio producer for Tiki and Tierney, and we collaborate on some stories and segments and where we're going to place them and things of that nature. And then a few hours later, we'll talk to Brandon and Tiki, and they end up changing things. And
As those hosts always do.
right, exactly. And so then from there, I then sit with my crew, and we go over, okay, well, whose stats do we need? Maybe put together some really cool full screen of like maybe some kind of like special stats, something that the viewers might find interesting. And then the B-roll. And so we sit there and we basically build the show. And then from there, it's basically looking at everything and double checking and making sure everything's spelled right, making sure everything is fitting our timelines for video and things like that. And then I check back in with the hosts. It's basically layering until you get to, you go live.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds really intense. And you do that every single day for every show.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. So
Yeah.
let me ask you this question. What do you like most about your job?
Um, I love the camaraderie between everyone. Even though we're working so hard, we love what we do and we get to be creative every day. I don't think there's one day that goes by where we don't laugh at least once. It's just even with the hosts, the kind of relationship we have with the hosts, it's just fun. And somebody comes up with a new idea, or maybe they might nix an idea, and you have another person that will say, well, instead of this, let's put this here. And sometimes a whole new segment erupts, a weekly segment erupts from just, we felt like changing something up a little bit. So I think that's the cool thing about it. Every day you get to be creative
Right.
and
That
you
is
get to work with really cool people.
Yeah. And how many people are on your crew? So I know everybody's remote, but if you were in the studio, how many people would be working on the show?
There are, in the studio with me, there are 4, 5, 6 of us. Then there's 2 people in graphics and 2 people in the edit. And then we have our production manager who helps all of us, stay organized and sane. So that, just on the TV side, I'd say we have about 11 to 12 people.
Wow. And now you're working remotely and you're
Yeah.
communicating via a special
We,
app.
s-
That must be
we
something.
still have an RTS, except now it's an app on our phone. But it's very cool. We're able to just freely, it's like a walkie-talkie, we're able to talk to each other. And then we have Zoom has been a godsend, where that's basically our studio now. So we have all different screens up, and it'll show me Tiki, it'll show me Brandon Tierney, it'll show me the B-roll and all kinds of stuff. So our engineers are magnificent.
Wow.
They're the
Wow.
true heroes of this whole thing.
Engineers, how about that?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. And what about, that's the best part of your job, being able to be creative and work as a member of a team. What do you find is the biggest challenge?
Um, the biggest challenge, I would say, is the 24-hour part of it. This is my favorite time of year, but I have to make sure, Sunday nights I'm home and I've gone through every, football game. And again, if that's my biggest complaint, I think I'm doing okay. But I'd say the only thing that actually has happened over time is I used to be, I am a huge Giants fan, but for me to sit and watch a game and kind of enjoy it, like just as a fan, that's kind of gone to the wayside a little bit. So I
Oh,
kind
how
of
about
miss that.
that? All right. So kind of killed your fandom a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Funny. I would never have thought that. What about, I have this question. So, as a woman, do you think it's more difficult for women producers? Because really, that is typically a very male dominated part of the industry. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's getting better. Um, Unfortunately, though, you're always going to have that host, that crew member that just has a really hard time taking direction from a woman. And And it's not just one person. You'll have a few people on your crew that will do that. I've actually had other women have a problem taking direction from me. And I would say that is probably the biggest issue now that you'll run into. When I started there at CBS Sports Network and the TV side, that was back in 2014. I would say there were maybe 2 female producers, and now there are 7.
Oh, well, that's a step in the
So,
right direction.
yeah, yeah.
I
So
have a
that's a good thing.
that is a good thing. I have a question from a student, Justin. Do you find it harder to get internships at an older age? I'm 31, so I'm sort of hovering on that career change path too. That's a great question, Justin.
Um, it is harder, I would say, in the fact of sometimes the people interviewing you think that you will want a job directly from that. And of course, everyone does. But I think they're afraid to kind of take that chance that, you're going to insist on that job where you won't just take the internship and leave. If they choose to let you go after the internship.
Right.
But that is far and few between. I interviewed at maybe like 4 or 5 different places when I was looking for an internship, and I would say only one place I got that vibe. Otherwise, I think age actually helps you. It helped me. I know the fact that I was older, the program director relied on me more, knew that I was going to be there on time, that when I was there, I was going to put the work in, and that I was going to take it seriously. So if anything, I don't want to lie and say like, no, nobody cares what your age is. Yeah, you'll probably get somebody that's like, oh, I don't know. But I think mostly, especially now, because people are changing careers so much in their 30s, that and 40s, I think that more people are looking, hiring managers are looking at that as a plus, because they know they're not going to get some kid coming in that's just, they just want to meet Steve Summers, say, at the Fan, or Joe
I just
Beningo
want
or
to meet
something
Tiki.
like that.
I just want to meet
Boomer.
Tiki. Right, boomer, right, yeah.
And I interned with guys like that. I interned with, young guys that were just there to meet the celebrities, really. So I think that you will find it is actually more of an advantage for you.
That is a great I never even thought about that. You're right. I think described it, it makes a lot of sense. So how about that, Justin? It might work to your advantage.
Definitely. And
Yeah,
31, you're good.
right, you're still
31
very
is
young.
still nice and young.
So, I want to ask you with this last question because I don't want to take. I know you have a busy morning ahead of you. What is your best advice for students who want to break into either television or radio or a little bit of both? What would you say to them?
Um, be prepared to say yes to everything. I said yes to that associate director role, even though I was an associate producer, and the progression is usually associate producer to producer. A gentleman I work with, at the time, he said he felt the AD role was beneath him. Oh, you're counting in and out of break. That's not going to get you to a producer position. Hello. So, it actually puts you in the control room. I just say yes to everything. That's appropriate, obviously, but just say yes to everything. And be prepared to, in the beginning, give it 120%. You're going to have friends and significant others that are understanding of your crazy hours that you will work, trust me. And I would also say try to learn a little bit of everything. Even if you are looking where, say, you want to start out producing and then you want to take that step to go on air, you should really know how to write, know how to shoot yourself, light yourself. Um, I would say get your hands dirty and everything.
That is absolutely fabulous advice. So, what I hear you saying is work really, really hard, be willing to take any shift, any job. Don't turn it down. Just, don't think anything is beneath you. Get as much experience as you can, learn all the different sides, being able to do a little bit of everything. And then you'll be able to progress, I think, more through your career, not quicker, but you'll gain the experience as you go.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a great advice. So, as we're wrapping up, does anyone have any questions? Justin said in response to the about being 31, woohoo, thank you. Yes, I'd love to network and meet people. And then he laughed and said, haha, I appreciate it.
Good luck, Justin. You'll do great.
So Marlo, I really want to thank you for agreeing to be interviewed. Thank you so much. You provide a wealth of information, and I think this is very valuable for the students, especially as they're thinking about what's next. Many of my students right now are working on their master's degrees, but even for the students with the bachelor's degree, get out there, get experience, don't say no to any don't say no to the odd hours. So let me ask you a question. Did you work odd hours? Like, were you given odd shifts when you first started?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I worked I probably I probably didn't get a single holiday back until maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. I worked every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, and I had weird hours. Like there would be nights I'd work midnight to 6 a.m. And then I'd have to be back for a shift at, maybe a day later at 6 a.m. to noon. So
Right.
be prepared.
Be prepared. That's great advice. And then just thank you and good morning, by the way. So it is early. I realize that. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. And join me next week as I interview television reality executive producer Robin Samuels, who has Emmy nominated and also won an Emmy for work on a reality television show. Marlo, thank you for joining us, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.